Hello, and welcome in. Wizards Jazz, our second broadcast game of the week. The 41-win Utah Jazz traveling to Washington, D.C. to get a matchup with a Wizards team that's trying to right the ship. They've got Devin Anderson still out with a knee injury, but they've just gotten back Zane Bennett as they try to roll on up the Eastern Conference standings. Meanwhile, the other side, the number 3 ranked offense, Utah Jazz, they've been playing well. Darius Dixon has been nothing short of dominant this entire season. No surprises there. We're going to do just like we did for the Warriors Raptors game. We'll talk about each team's equally as we get a look at the starting five for both groups. Serve this as a chance to deep dive into the various pieces going along around the league. That man right there is Franklin Knox. That's the new acquisition for the Washington Wizards, and that's where we're going to start. The Wizards have been decimated by injuries. Sure, you've got Cole Anthony, who's been playing really well. The big knock on the Wizards and Cole Anthony has been, are they good enough to win a championship with him kind of as their best player? Zane Bennett, very talented. Devin Anderson, who again we mentioned, he's out with a knee injury. He's expected to come back in the coming days. Probably their second best player. That was the challenge when Washington went up against the Golden State Warriors 3 seasons ago in the NBA Finals when they got swept by Golden State in a series in which Javon Roll went for 70-plus in the clinching game to seal things. This is a good basketball team, but the challenge that they had was depth, and they needed to add a guy like Franklin Knox. It gives them somebody else who can play both the forward positions, and in this instance, he's actually starting at the 5 over Zane Bennett. That's a puzzling move to me. That's a puzzling move because the Wizards always profiled as Zane Bennett kind of felt like a guy who you would put in at at the 5 spot with stretch bigs around him. Think Rashawn Matthews with maybe a little bit less offense. That's kind of where Zane Bennett was at. Instead, as Jalen Johnson rises up for 2, instead, Devin Anderson was drafted onto this team the following season after Zane Bennett. Since then, over the past 5 years, they have had the second most wins in the NBA behind only the Golden State Warriors. This is a good basketball team that's been hurt by injuries this season. So to add Franklin Knox, who I'd expect to see some big things from in this game, that's a big addition for them. That's a big addition to be able to add some depth, add some versatility. Is Franklin Knox an elite scorer? No, he's not. But is he going to be able to provide some valuable minutes? He sure is. I actually think their best player, or at least if you're going to look second best, to me, that is in fact Devin Anderson. Early in the season, he was taking a lot of three-pointers. Since then, he's completely eradicated that from his arsenal. He took about 4 3-pointers a game early in the season and was making less than 20% of them. Since he's taken that out, he's been a 19-point-per-game guy, a 15-rebound capability type of guy. That's where this team wins basketball games. They're going to win it in slow, grinded-out games. If you're looking at the scoreboard and saying, well, it's 21-15, this is a very slow. 20 points is 30 points if you want to go with that kind of comparison. They are wanting to play slow, and in this game thus far, they've been able to do that with Utah. Meanwhile, I think that the bench of Demetrius Ward, who's playing defense right here on Darius Dixon, to no avail, is a nice addition. Ward's a good shooter. He's somebody that can come in off the bench. You can start him. Egon Katsavelis is their second starter in the backcourt next to Cole Anthony. They're not going to beat you with a 25, 30-point-per-game score like Utah is with that man right there, Darius Dixon. They're not going to beat you with an Amari Swift. They're not going to beat you with a Jalen Justice. They're going to beat you by playing disciplined basketball. That translates to a lot of regular season wins. It's why they've won 50-plus games so often over the last half-decade. But that really is a challenge in the playoffs. This is Eastern Conference this season that the top teams are teams that you'd expect to be in the top. Washington, and as here's Marcel Hampton finding Franklin Knox for 2. This is a team that has a lot of depth. The Eastern Conference that has a lot of depth, but their top teams that we've expected have been hurt by injuries. I think that's going to make the play-in tournament really interesting. Let's go to the other side. Utah, the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference. Spiro Gianu, he hits the 3 right there. They've got a lot of depth. I think the one spot that they don't have a ton of depth at, and that, actually, I beg your pardon, was not Spiro Gianu. That was Lou Langford. That's Lucas Alvarez right there. They don't have a lot of depth at the second forward position next to Patrick Morris Sr. That's at the 4. That's going to be their big challenge, but they have been an incredible team with Julius Walker healthy. He has completely changed this team when he's been on the floor. It's a 62-win pace team when he's out there. There's Demetrius Ward. We talked about him as he hits a 3. If he's going to be healthy during the playoffs, he's an all-NBA center because the center position in the NBA right now just isn't, it's not intimidating, okay? You've got your Robert Max, your Xavier Carters, Julius Walker you can throw in there on the bottom end of that, your Devin Andersons, your Abiz Ojales, but there's this huge dearth of good centers between that level and the sub-level, right? If you want to go, let's use Russell Kingston as a familiar name as the Washington Wizards are rallying back here to start the third quarter. You use that as a second name. That's kind of the second tier. Like, you would take Russell Kingston as a good second-tier center. There's a big difference between Russell Kingston and Julius Walker, as Spiro Ianu right there gets 2 points to go and the lead right back up to 9 points. Utah, though, if he's healthy, he's good. But their other pieces, don't forget this team went to 7 games last season with the Golden State Warriors. This was a very, very good team. They were down 3-1. They got rolling because of Darius Dixon. They'll need that again, and I expect they have it. Patrick Morris Sr. has evolved into a Klay Thompson-type second player. Obviously, he's at the 3, not the 2, but a deadly three-point shooter. He hit the game winner in Game 6 to force Game 7 against Golden State last season. If he's out there, this is a good group. Jacob Kuksix has had a bit of a down season at the point guard position. He's the one guy. Him and Julius Walker are both over 30 years old. They're the two guys that don't fit the timeline of Patrick Morris and Darius Dixon. But look, Darius Dixon is in the category of Amari Swift, of Javon Roll, of Jalen Justice, where he's a top guy. Of Deontay Dixon, I think you could throw in there. He's a top guy, and if he's going to be healthy, you always feel as if you've got a shot. And very subtly, they've risen to being the number 2 team. Their offense is incredible. Tonight, they've been held in check by a very, very good defensive group as we move to the fourth quarter. We're going to get every single game going. That's where Utah's going to have a shot. They can be the team that can say, look, we actually gave the Warriors a push last season. Phoenix, you didn't. New Orleans, you didn't, and you're nowhere to be found this season. Utah, we did. We were 1 win away on the road against getting this thing, and now we've got a much better potential pathway where we don't have to find you. Here's Cole Anthony trying to get past Julius Walker. Won't do it. Walker then picks him up top, and this is the versatility that Walker provides with great contest there, but they cannot get the board. Does not matter because it's Darius Dixon. We've got a 1-point game here, 6 minutes to go. This is about what you'd expect from a Washington team. Going inside is Julius Walker. That's where he goes back-to-back ends. One end he stymies Cole Anthony. The other end he's able to score easily on him. Marcel Hampton with the answer. Long career path from Marcel Hampton, the former number 1 pick in that 2024 draft, the infamous 2024 draft that was kind of believed to be devoid of elite talent, kind of ended up that way. Marcel Hampton never really panned out as the number 1. Sterling Weems was the number 3 pick in that draft. He's now no longer with the team that drafted him. Nathan Servin was the number 2 pick. Obviously, he's no longer in Phoenix, but he was the rookie of the year. He's now with the Clippers as Franklin Knox gets rolling. We talked about him making a difference. He's done that tonight. Here's Jacob Kuksix. Like to see him go up with that. That's kind of been a challenge right now for Kuksix, is the aggressiveness. But you want big trades. Julius Walker was acquired last season at the trade deadline. That was a move that that Utah really made an all-in effort to get him. That matters, and that's obviously paid off for them as we see Cole Anthony blocked inside by Jacob Kuksix. Kuksix, despite his age and his scoring has dropped 2 points, he's still a great defender. He's an ideal fit, I think, next to Darius Dixon. Dixon, if you're trying to build a perfect complement to him, I think it's a wing because he's so great on ball that you don't really want somebody that's a point guard that's taking command of the basketball at all times. Kuksix obviously does that and does a good job of it as Julius Walker gets the offensive board to go. But you want a guy, in my opinion, that's probably a step up of Patrick Morris. Patrick Morris can't really take anybody off the dribble. He's a great three-point threat. He's a 40% three-point shooter as he takes an ill-advised, awful three-pointer there with 2 minutes to go. But Kuksix has fit in well. We're at the 2-minute mark, so we'll lock in here. 3-point game. Here comes Knox. also stepping out of bounds. Turnover gives the ball right back to Utah. Cuxick with Cole Anthony on him. Good screen to free up Patrick Morris Sr. to tie this game. He does. Down goes Walker. Quick note on Julius Walker. He would leave on that play with a chest injury. He is not expected to miss time, and a 3 is answered by Utah. Darius Dixon unable to get that to go inside, and that injury to Walker taking him out of this lineup as Franklin Knox dials up a three-pointer that won't go. Really does hurt a team that's very reliant on him at the center position. Part of why this team's been so good with Walker compared to without is that they don't have a great backup center option. Probably something they wanted to address at the deadline and just couldn't find anyone. Again, that goes back to the lack of talent. Foul called there on Cuxick. That sends Cole Anthony to the line. Misses the second end of that, so a 2-point game. Chance to take the lead or tie. Here comes Dixon. Pull up, three-pointer. Halfway down and out. That's going to be a decision here by the Jazz to foul Cole Anthony. Chance to ice it. Misses the first. Misses the second. Utah's got a chance to win this thing. They're going to screen for Dixon. Drives to the rack. Up, in, 2 points, and we're tied with 14 to go. Now, holding for last shot. Will they do it or drive? Here comes Cole Anthony on Cuxick. No one in the paint. No Julius Walker. The 2-pointer is good for Anthony. 2-point game as now a chance to win it. Inbounds to Dixon. Pull up. Deep 3. Won't go. Ball game for the Wiz. Final score in this one, 102-99, 28-33 go the Wizards. A tough night from Cole Anthony, 14 points on 6 of 18 shooting, but the big 2-pointer there to close things out. Big night from Franklin Knox. We've talked about him, 18 points. He's been really good for the Wizards since his arrival. They got 13 points in 21 minutes from Demetrius Ward. They shot 48% from deep. Meanwhile, the Jazz really struggled at the end there without Julius Walker on the floor. Tough night from Jacob Cuxick on 3 of 13. Overall, just not a great scoring night from Dixon either, 8 of 20. But they're going to fall to 41 and 20, still in possession of the number 2 seed. Coming up next, we got the league update, and then we're right back to some hoops after that. Thanks for tuning in.